Welcome back. Steve, before the break, you were very passionately describing the evil that these men do. What do you think is their end game with this? Like, why? You have to look at a situation and say, well, why would they perpetrate this for so long? Why would they do this? I mean, of course, there's money to be made, and yeah, they're doing testing and whatever else. God knows what they're hiding, under the auspices of AIDS testing and stuff with all this money that gets donated to them. But what do you think? What's one of the main reasons for this?
Well, we could go way out into outer space with some of this stuff, but let's just, make it very sensible, Popeye, and say that they want to set up an international health control grid. We've seen this with, Codex Alimentarius. We've seen what's happening with the FDA. We've seen what happened with H1N1, how 6 cases of flu can be called an international pandemic, stuff like that. It's about putting people in positions to control health measures and agendas everywhere they want to be, across the world, worldwide, actually, they need people from UN AIDS, from World Health Organization, from the, international health control boards and whatever all over the world who are in position. And anytime they find somebody who actually raises questions and talks common sense, they can identify that person, move them out, put somebody else who's a yes man there. So that way, nobody can raise any questions about food and nutrition. Nobody can ask any questions about, vaccinations. Anytime they decide to create an epidemic or seal off a portion of the population or control people, they can do it with fear, with media, with lies, with bogus, fraudulent stuff like Gallows AIDS bug. They can come up with anything they like all the time to scare the hell out of people. It's Machiavellian. It's the New World Order. That's what it is. The New World Order of health is what it's really all about.
Yeah, now they're going to create even more preventable diseases because of the whole Codex Alimentarius thing, and people are going to die from diseases that are completely preventable, and it's just due to malnutrition because they're literally taking the nutrients and things that our body needs naturally out because they are labeling them bad for human consumption.
Right.
And we're just going to let some psycho agency say, yeah, it's bad, so you can't have it. And we're going to all stand around and go, okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Unless we fight them, unless we identify them.
We need to stand up and fight because this is out of control. I mean, Big Pharma is out of control in every way, shape, or form. The GMO companies like Monsanto, evil. When you look up Monsanto, just think of the evilest thing you could possibly think of. If you're a Christian, the devil. If you're, I'm not really sure what Muslims, I forget, they have a term for demons. I forget what it's called, but that's what it would be called. These guys are just sick, evil bastards. They don't care about anybody.
Right. Yeah, they've got a long-term agenda, and it's very ugly because they definitely do want to either dumb down the population. Now, you take a substance like AZT, which they're forcing pregnant women to take in Africa, or basically forcing them. That happens actually in the United States, too. The pressure is enormous. You can lose your children very quickly if you take them into a clinic and they're tested positive, and you refuse to give them the pharmaceuticals. And I could talk a little bit about women whom I've known personally. There are 3 cases of women that I have known who have fought against HIV and the machine, and all 3 of them are dead now. And none of them died of AIDS. I can tell you that right now. They're Christy Majori, Chris Schmiel, and recently Carrie Stokely. And I can tell you, I know them, I know the families. I know them very well. And I've worked with them over the years. None of these women died of AIDS, but the AIDS industry calls them all, the victims of AIDS. And of course, they're dead because they were stupid and did not take their pharmaceuticals, who, by the way, have killed about 62% of the people, or at least virtually almost everybody who took the AZT in the AZT years is dead. And a very large number of the people in the cocktail years, which are supposed to be the improved treatments, are dead too. And we don't know that number yet, Popeye, because you got to get out 4 or 5 years. taking AZT is a very dangerous drug. It's amazing that Carrie Stokely lived 11 years on this stuff. 11 years she lived on this. She went off of it. She felt great. And then when she had some problems, some physical problems, the doctors would not treat her because she wasn't taking the drugs. That's the way they work. Chris Schmiel, a very good friend of mine, a very close friend of mine, beautiful young girl, had 2 daughters. I call her a young girl because she was only 30 years old, and I'm a little older now. But she had 2 daughters that she left behind. Was in the test where she actually took AZT during her pregnancy because she, was led to believe that she was supposed to be on this drug. Can you imagine what it's like taking a drug that's designed to destroy DNA when you're pregnant? When you're pregnant? I mean, they won't even give you a few ounces of American beer when you're pregnant. You're supposed to stay away from that. Here's a drug designed to destroy DNA in a pregnant woman. And it gets to the baby. I can promise you that. So they're dumbing down the population. They're creating the drone race for the masters, if you like. We can just go on and on about the conspiracy. I can tell you one thing. This definitely is something that's way beyond a mistake. This is not a mistake, ladies and gentlemen. This is a targeted eugenics program. And they're finding people, and they're doing it with a germ that doesn't exist. They're creating it's like, you don't want to create a germ that would actually cause something like this because it might come back and get you if it mutates, right? They're doing this with something that's absolutely fictional. It's like I said before, if they had people who fell off ladders, and died and they were HIV positive, they would say that HIV causes people to fall off ladders and die. And so what about the 99 people out of 100 that fall off ladders and die and don't have HIV? Well, they just fell off ladders and died. The other people, HIV causes AIDS. It causes them to, the AIDS disease now is falling off ladders. And I can prove that to you with cervical cancer, with women in specific, because 99% of the women who have cervical cancer are HIV negative, okay? And many of them are treated as they are, and many of them die with cervical cancer, okay? But when the 1% who have cervical cancer and HIV have the sickness, so they will say that HIV causes cervical cancer, even though 99% of the women with cervical cancer don't have HIV. You see what I'm getting at? The whole thing is a definition, an artifact of definition. And what is AIDS? It's real, but it's not being caused by HIV, ladies and gentlemen. And this has been a huge fraud. This is, as I said, the biggest medical scientific fraud and dangerous genocide program in the world today, because it's just the tip of the iceberg. We can talk about cancer, we can talk about Alzheimer's, we can talk about diabetes, we can talk about heart disease. I mean, there's so many things we can talk about. Malnutrition,
well,
of course.
Diabetes feeds off, corn syrup like, crack.
Yeah.
And so does cancer, apparently. Apparently, cancer is fed by corn syrup as well. So, I mean, it's just, it kind of makes you wonder, 100 years ago, you didn't have all these people dying of cancer and having diabetes and everything else. And they ate sugar and they ate crap, whatever crap food they had available at the time, like some sweets, which is what you would consider garbage food back then. The rest of their stuff was, they grew it, they made it themselves fresh. Flash forward 100 years, we're eating food that's got additives. Bob Tuskin did a show the other day. He listed the first hour like 10 additives that are bad for you. It took him an hour to list the first 10 because of all the negative side effects and crap and things it does to your body and all the food that it's in. I mean, I had to throw away half my food after his show because I literally went into my kitchen and I started picking up the boxes of stuff that I thought was somewhat okay. And here it's got all these chemicals and crap. I had to chuck it because I can't knowingly eat that now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it is a crime against all of us. And of course, today, you see, this shows you that honest research and dissidents, Peter Duesberg began to dispute the HIV/AIDS hypothesis in 1987. And there were alerts sent out from the Centers for Disease Control to all the media outlets. Do not let this man on. Do not let this guy talk. I mean, this was the man who was the foremost retrovirologist in the world. Robert Gallo even said he knows more about retrovirology and retroviruses than any man alive. Okay, well, Duesberg knew Gallo. Of course he did, but he was the first person to denounce this whole thing and said, no, this can't be. Well, Peter Duesberg just looked at the scientific studies, and he looked at the CDC surveillance. He said, no, this doesn't work. This is the kind of peer review that should have gone into effect immediately before the U.S. Department of Health came out and said, we have found the probable cause of AIDS, and it's one of those old cancer viruses we were looking at for a long time, HIV. They named it HIV, human immunodeficiency virus. But the point is very simple, that there is no scientific counterpoint to this medical health industrial complex control grid.
They're evil.
They are.
Pure evil. We're going into break, Steve. We'll be right back. Stay tuned for the final segment with Steve Starr, the HIV/AIDS fraud. Stay tuned.
Get your ACT, folks. Ha 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 ha. Ha ha.